Tzoros of Chai Yisrael is all sourced in the day of Tisha B'Av, from the time in the Midbar when they cried that they didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael, the two Chabanas, the expulsion of Spain, the First World War, and all the Tzoros are attributed to this day of Tisha B'Av. And as we know, many Tzoros happen during the time, during this period, 3 weeks, leading up to Tisha B'Av itself. And we need to understand that it's in a way it's a hashgacha. It's a way of seeing the hashgacha of the Ribono Shel Olam, that there's nothing random. You know, we know when our tzaros come during this time, and we need to be prepared for it. On the other hand, one of the most amazing things is that you know, that we lead up till Tisha B'Av. And then Tisha B'Av by Chatzos, it's already it eases off a little. And then the next day, you know, by Shabbos Nachman, there's parties going on. So, that's Hashem. You know, the way the Jewish calendar goes, we go from Tzara to Nechama to Shiva to Nechamta. We should have it should be times of Nechama now rather than of Tzara. So we're going to start talking about Erev Tisha B'Av, and then we'll get into Tisha B'Av, and then let's see where it goes. So Erev Tisha B'Av, the halachas are really that from Chatzos of the day, that already starts getting from Chatzos of Erev Tisha B'Av is already a time when we're careful, when we don't just do things, just don't go on trips, we just don't go to Yulim. It's already a time when the Avelis is starting, and that's already the minig that
the Chatzos of Tisha B'Av?
For Chatzos of Erev Tisha B'Av.
Oh, Erev Tisha B'Av.
Yeah, Erev Tisha B'Av. So, it's a minig not to learn on Erev Tisha B'Av from Chatzos and onwards. We don't even learn except for the Dvarim HaMutarim of Tisha B'Av. Now, this minig, Nagu, was debated by many of the Achronim, because what are you doing if you're not learning? You're doing other things. So maybe it's better to learn. The Marshal himself says that he learned after Chatzos, and he was matter for others to learn. The Goin says the Chumra Yiseirehi. So therefore, it's not for everyone. Someone feels that he's not going to waste his time. He's not going to do other things. It's better that he learns. That's for sure. No question, it's better that he learns than do something else. But those that could learn Dvarim HaMutarim Tisha B'Av, you know, Avelis and other things that they don't have opportunity to learn all year, so now's the time. So that's that. But it's interesting that there's such a concept that after Chatzos there's an Issa to learn. I mean, there's no other Issa that applies on Tisha B'Av that we do in Erev Tisha B'Av really after Chatzos. I mean, we eat, we drink, we do everything. So what's this concern about after Chatzos that not to learn on Erev Tisha B'Av? Good, there is, you don't lo yitayil. L'chein es la'amor. L'chein lo yitayil Erev Tisha B'Av. You know, it's the summer. People want to go to Torah, even, you know, you want to go see the science center. It's not the right time for it. And Erev Tisha B'Av.
Isn't it actually more severe than Tisha B'Av? Because in Tisha B'Av we say there are certain things that you can learn. Right?
The same thing. What you can learn on Tisha B'Av, you can learn Erev Tisha B'Av.
Okay.
Yeah. Dvarim HaMutarim, the things that are mutter to learn on Tisha B'Av, you're allowed to learn Erev Tisha B'Av.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sam Seif has a very interesting pshat in this issue of learning Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. A very telling pshat. I don't know if we go like him halacha l'maisa, but he has a nice pshat, interesting take on it. He says, because the problem is like this. What happens if Erev Tisha B'Av this year? It's not like that. Many times Erev Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, and then the person can say, well, we could be more makel to learn, you know, after Chatzos on Shabbos. Others even refrain from that, even on Shabbos, which brings down. Ramah brings down, b'Shabbos ein oimim Pirkei Avos. They don't say Pirkei Avos. They don't say Pirkei Avos normally, you know, by Mincha time. No, you don't say Pirkei Avos because you don't learn after Chatzos, even though it came out on Shabbos. So the Mishnah brings back a Tazma Fakvik Ma'oid al Maria Salimid b'Shabbos. It comes out Haloimid b'Shabbos Achachtzes Hifsid Schorei. That's even when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, Kol Shechin and it's pushed off to Sunday. Kol Shechin and Tisha B'Av comes out on Sunday. He says, since even during the weekday many argue about learning after Chatzos, Kavachayim on Shabbos. But you see the severity. Where do we find such a concept? Even on Shabbos, the 9 days is almost like bottle. You know, we eat the meat, we do everything, right? And don't learn after Chatzos on Shabbos. So that maybe halacha l'maisa, everybody's knowing to learn after Chatzos on Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. Erev Tisha B'Av, there are those, but what's this chumrah? So he says a very interesting thing. Someone else actually asked him the Shaila. It was a Tisha B'Av that came out on Shabbos that year, and he wanted to know if he should give his drasha on Shabbos. The Rav wanted to know, should he give his drasha? This is before Chatzos. Shabbos, after davening, should he give his drasha, because it was really Tisha B'Av, it was just pushed off to Sunday.
He clearly believed his drasha would make people happy.
It was a learning drasha. I have so many of that today. But anyways, so he brings down that the question is, there's another question which is not relevant this year. If Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, what halacha does it have? We know we push off Tisha B'Av to Sunday, but the halacha is by Avelos, for example. Someone's on Avel over Shabbos, so Dvarim Shabbatzin are noyeg. Things that are for Hesya are not noyeg. So he comes to shul, things that are for Hesya are not noyeg, but Dvarim Shabbatzin are things that are private, he's noyeg. There's the Issa Tashma Shamita. These things are noyeg on Shabbos when someone's on Avel. So who are then? The Shaal's learning could be a Dvarim Shabbatzin, you're learning by yourself. Is that Asr? So he brings the Shaila. So he says, what's this issue of learning Erev Tisha B'Av? Very interesting pshat. He says the pshat is because when a person gets involved in learning Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos, his mind gets so involved in learning, he's going to end up learning at night. I don't know if it ever happened to us, but if you're going to learn after Chatzos, you get involved in the sugya, so your mind is occupied with the sugya. So then at night you're going to be still involved with the learning, and since you can't learn on Tisha B'Av, so therefore they had to stop it from Chatzos. That's the pshat in the Yisr, to learn by Chatzos. So B'meila, that's the pshat even on Shabbos it's also. Even on Shabbos after Chatzos, because it's not also because you're not allowed to learn on Shabbos. It's also because by learning on Shabbos, you're going to end up learning Motzei Shabbos, which happens to be Tisha B'Av, and that would be also. So he says that that's only after Chatzos.
And he said that still applied in his time, the Chassam Sofer's time.
So it's the
And
same
you're
pshat.
concerned about that? Interesting.
If a person's involved in a good business deal, he'll think about it at night. So that's what he says. So anyways,
Can't learn for the 9 days. Can't learn for the 9 days.
Yeah, right.
he says, he brings a medrash though, that Rebbe was Korah Eicha. Rebbe read in Megillas Eicha on Tisha B'Av that came out on Shabbos. So why did he learn Megillas Eicha on Tisha B'Av that came out on Shabbos? It must be held that other learning would be Yasser. But Akapanim, he says, Allah Chalamaysa, that it's only after Chatzos that the Nogul Hachmir. We'll come back to this medrash that Rebbe read Megillas Eicha. Some say there's a fascinating pshat on that. We'll come back to that. But Akapanim, so Tisha B'Av, after Chatzos, Erev Tisha B'Av, after Chatzos, there's already a time to start getting into the mood, to the mode. There's also, you can start reading about Tisha B'Av. The person should come prepared.
We can do before that as well. I mean, we could learn about Tisha B'Av today too.
We can learn about Tisha B'Av today also, but don't worry, I have plenty of time over Tisha B'Av to learn about Tisha B'Av.
That's true.
You know, so before Chatzos you can learn regular, but the person should come prepared for what to learn and what the halachas are, what to do, because it's like any other youngster. If you want to come prepared, not just to walk in. Tisha B'Av is here. Okay, so that's it starts already by Chatzos a little bit, not to be Matayal and other things. Now, we have Erev Tisha B'Av something called the Suda HaMafsekes. Suda HaMafsekes.
Isn't it a strange requirement to come prepared for Tisha B'Av? It implies that you know Tisha B'Av is going to be a sad day.
You know, there's a question, there's a good point. You know, there's the shiloh about being mechanech the kids that are under bar mitzvah to fast, right? So we know mechanchem as a tinik for shoys, a time of shoys. Make them fast an hour or two, depending on how old they are. You know, if they're 11, 12, we make them fast a little bit until they're and then they eat. So there's a question. There are some that say, I forget who says this, but that even though for Yom Kippur at other times maybe there's such a concept, but on Tisha B'Av we're not mechanech them because next year won't be Tisha B'Av. Why we have to think next year too? We have to mechanech them for next year will be Tisha B'Av. Next year maybe won't be Tisha B'Av. That's what you're saying. We'll make a chinuch for it. But l'maisa, maybe by being masabel al Yerushalayim, zachav v'maya l'simchasa. So the preparation for Tisha B'Av will gufla take away the tzar. The more masabel on Yerushalayim, the more that takes away from the golus. As it says, called masabel Yerushalayim zachav simchasa. It's well known that those that were Isaac and Tikkun Chatzos are makar of the geula. We're not Isaac so much today in Tikkun Chatzos. One does it because a person to be Misabel in Yerushalayim has to be holding by a certain level, darga. Chatzos, not so simple. Not everybody does it. But during this time, during the 3 weeks, the Gemara says that Eliezer Zeira wore black shoes. So today everybody wears black shoes, but in those days they only wore black shoes if you were in Avelis. So the Reish Galusa went ahead and they said, why are you wearing black shoes? So he says, I'm being Masabel al Yerushalayim. So they put him in jail because At Chashivas Sabula Yerushalayim. Who are you that you think you're keeping Masabel al Yerushalayim? This is Gemara. So he said, what do you mean? I got a rabbi. I'm a big guy. I'm Choshva. I can be Masabel al Yerushalayim. Now it says it called him Eliezer Zeira because he was a big onav. But he wasn't interested in sitting in jail because this guy decided that he wasn't fit to be masabel. So they asked him a few questions, the Gemara says, and the Gemara Bava Kama there to see if he taka knew his beans. That's how they tested if he was a Gav Rabba. Then they were able to release him. But it says that that's all year long. In order to be masabel Yerushalayim, you have to be right for it. You have to taka feel the chassan. We don't feel it. I mean, we're not holding there. But during this period of time, we forget we have a chiyuv. During this period of time, we're able to feel it. Like we said last week, called Ridfer Sigua, Beit HaMitzarim. During this time, we're able to tap in and feel the Divasham is close to us, that he allows us to feel the churban. And sometimes if we don't feel it ourselves, he gives us a reminder or two. So, the Masabel Yerushalayim takes away from the Tzara Scheiner. When we're Masabel Yerushalayim, it takes away from the Tzara Scheiner, and that brings the Gula quicker. So upon him, there's something called a Suda Mafsekes. Now the Suda Mafsekes is a Suda of Tisha B'Av. Actually, there's a minhag when you dip the bread in the ashes to say Zeh Sudas Tisha B'Av. This is a Suda of Tisha B'Av. Because when someone is a Einein al Mesei before the Avelis, Tisha B'Av is Avelis, but when someone's an Einein, right, when the Mesei is still mutal fun of, so there's actually he eats sometimes a Suda, he sits on the floor and sometimes he eats, and that Suda is a very tasteless Suda. It's a Suda that he'd rather not eat. He has no interest in eating, and it says that Hasidim they used to eat stale bread with ashes. They had no taste to eat. That's the Suda's Tisha B'Av. So many of us don't eat stale bread, but we try to minimize the Suda. Literally, let's just have bread and maybe one tafshel, an egg. So the just have an egg, but one tafshel. Never have more than one tafshel. Let have one tafshel and bread. That's the Suda Mafsekes. You're allowed to have other things, not cooked food. You're allowed to have, but the minhag is to eat before. And during the Suda Mafsekes, just to suffice with those, with the bread and the egg, and the drink. A person should drink just what he needs, water. A tasteful drink is not recommended.
When will you usually have that? Just
after mincha. After mincha, before the fast, you have the Suda Mafsekes. Those that eat more should eat more, but not another tafshel. Another cooked food is not permitted. You can only have one cooked food, and bread. What the minhag is to eat a suda earlier. The minhag is to eat a suda earlier. It's very interesting. The Mechaber says the basic minhag. What we do is, before I read the Ramah, is that we have a suda before mincha, a proper suda, so we have what to eat, so we won't, so be able to make it through Tisha B'Av. It's a long Tisha B'Av in Canada, so we make it through. So you eat a suda, and then we have to make a hefsek because it has to be a separate suda. When you eat the suda mafsekes, that's a separate suda by itself. Otherwise, in this suda, you're eating a lot of food. You're not supposed to. So we go down to mincha, and then you come back, and then you have the suda mafsekes. That's the midag Ashkenaz. Ramah brings it down. The Mechaber says like this: Kol zeh b'suda mafsekes, that you could only have one tavshil, and we'll see the other part. Shein taitu lechel oida chaver sudas kava. You're not going to eat any suda after that. Kshu acha chatzos, and it's after chatzos. Or even if it's after chatzos, v'daitu lechel chaver sudas kava, you can eat another suda. Ein sarch lizar b'zvom halal. In other words, if you plan on eating a suda afterwards, you're allowed to eat now a lot. So that's what we do. We eat first suda, and then when you plan on eating, then the next suda will be the suda hamafsekes. Now, Ramah brings down a mitzvah b'chol glulas Ashkenaz lechel suda kvua koydem mincha, to eat a suda before mincha, v'akach mispalelin mincha, v'echol suda mafsekes. Menoyegin laharbis ktsas b'suda rishona, we're marble more in the first suda, kadesh lo yazik lehem ataynis, so the tainus shouldn't harm you if you don't eat erev Tisha B'Av. And Tisha B'Av is quite difficult. Hoyelu poiskim b'yom k'mayom kippur, because we start to fast at night. All the tanesim we start in the morning. Tisha B'Av is like Yom Kippur, which we start at night. Someone that's holding that he could pain himself a little more, and he knows within himself. In other words, the Ramah is hinting here, which the poskim say, wait a minute, this is a shtick. The Suda's Tisha B'Av is supposed to be just a little bit, and that's it. And now you eat a whole big Suda, Kiyara Melech, and then afterwards you make a Zecher for a Suda's Tisha B'Av. Afterwards, it's a shtick. Maybe you shouldn't do that. So Ramah says someone that's Kaddish and knows how to be Masagav and it's not going to harm him in the Tainus, for him, after Chatzos, any Suda he eats shouldn't eat so much. But in Chanami, those that should minimize, you don't have to have the latest ice cream or whatever there is to have by that Suda, even the Suda before the Suda of the Suda Mafsekes, because it is, after Chatzos, it's already just mad and it's coming. You eat what you need to be healthy in order to eat healthy food, in order that you should be able to survive the Tainus. And then by the Suda Mafsekes, that's the last Suda before, that's a chiyuv, that's an issur to eat. That's an issur to eat two cooked foods. It's important to understand this because those that don't have the second Suda come out that the over issur by the first Suda. Understand, if you're not going to eat the Suda Mafsekes, it comes out that when you ate your meal, you ate more than one cooked food, and that by default ended up being your Suda Mafsekes. That was the last Suda you had. So it's important to know if you're going to eat a Suda properly, which I hope most people will do, then they're going to eat afterwards a Suda Mafsekes, because otherwise it comes out that your first Suda is the Suda Mafsekes.
How prevalent is it for people to eat ashes? I mean, not to eat ashes, but to use the ash.
I don't know. We always did it. You take a piece of, you know how I do it?
You do it.
What I do is, I'm sure they always do it.
I burned some paper.
Do some paper.
Yeah.
You put a little bit on. You don't taste it. You put a little bit on. Some little ashes on. I don't know.
And what, hard-boiled egg?
It's not. I don't know if it's not a halach. It's a minhag. The halach is just to eat one tafshil.
And does it matter what that one tafshil is?
Doesn't matter. The minhag is to eat lentils or egg, because those things are like avelis, around like avelis. That's the minhag. But
bread is required because it's a Suda?
You have to have a Suda, bread. And a bread, there's a question why that's not like two tavshilin. You have a bread and an egg. Bread is baked, and this is it's cooked. But this you could do it. But another baked food together wouldn't be permitted. Now the question is what's called two tavshilin, something which you cook together as one. It could be as one tavshil, right?
And it's the bread that should be dipped in the ashes, not the tavshil?
What?
The bread is what should be dipped in the ashes, not the top shell?
It doesn't matter. People do the bread.
So baked is also considered a cooked food? Like,
yeah, bread, they shouldn't have a second baked food.
Or something, that's also...
Yeah. Anything you want to eat, you should eat before. Anything you want to eat, you should eat before. And then when you come to the Suda, should be, the best thing is just to keep it simple. You know, there are things which are considered one tafshel. If you have the beans cooked with onions, things that are normally cooked together, it's called one tafshel. But the thing is to keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Greens.
Here, the grandma brings the minig. V'yesh machmir l'tavel achar. He says to dip in after achilasim. You have to eat a pask by efer. V'lechol Hashem v'yigros b'chatzer shinai. So something was put in the Ramah. The big is to sit on the karka, sit on the ground. You don't have to take off your shoes. Shoes you can wear until Tisha B'Av, but the minig is to sit on the ground by the Suda Mavsekes. You don't have to take off the shoes. Those that can't sit on, it's difficult to sit on the ground, don't have to. If it's hard. I saw it interesting, Rav Shem Zalma says, the minig is for the woman not to sit on the ground. I never saw that. I saw other swarms saying, Muberes, Manikas, people are weak people, sick people, they shouldn't, they're not mechuyev to go down on the ground. But maybe a healthy woman, I don't know, but Hakoponim, it says no good as a minig to sit on karka b'suda mafsekes. A person shouldn't eat together with three people to make a zimun, because a person in the sits alone. You know, everybody's in their own sar. So the minig is spread out a little bit. You don't sit together three in a zimun, not to have a mazuman. If you did sit together, you still don't make a zimun. You don't make a zimun. So that's the suda mafsekes, and. That's that. We don't say Tachnun Erev Tisha B'Av by Mincha, because Tisha B'Av is called a Moyed, it's called a Yom Tov, and on Yom Tov you don't say Tachnun, which is an interesting halacha or a din, and therefore we don't say Tachnun Erev Tisha B'Av, just like the Erev of a Yom Tov you don't say Tachnun. Okay. Going into Tisha B'Av, so we know there's the five things. Tisha B'Av has a mix between the halachas of tainus and the halachas of avelus. And it's sort of intertwined and mixed together. And sometimes even in halacha it's unclear which halacha is coming from the tainus and which halacha is coming from the avelus. But there's both halachas that are there. So, for example, the things that we have on Yom Kippur are also on Tisha B'Av. Achil l'shtiyah, eating and drinking is one. Chitza, washing is also. Talk about that. Sicha is anointing, putting smearing some oils of pleasure from these things. That's also. And Tashma Shamita is also. Tashma Shamita is also on Tisha B'Av. And you also sandal, and you can't wear shoes, which we'll get to. You can't wear shoes on Tisha B'Av just like Yom Kippur. Now that also has both. That's for the inui. In other words, a tainus, the purpose of the tainus is to give a person pain, inui. Just like not eating is an inui, because it's hungry. So too are these other things also. Not washing is an inui. It feels disgusting. It's dirty. It's an inui. Not wearing shoes is an inui. So there's an aspect of a tainus in there. That's an inui. Even though by other tanesim we're not makbid on all the five things. We just don't refrain from eating. There are those that were makbid on all tanesim on these five things. There was such some paiskim, but l'maisa we're not machmer only on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. But these are all part of inuyim of pain that you do for a tainus. And then there's the aspect of avelus, which not wearing shoes could also be avelus. And then there's other things we do for avelus. We don't do things that are simchadik, right? So we don't learn. We don't. The pleasure walks, we don't do things that are simchatik on Tisha B'Av.
Sit on the ground.
Well, we sit on the ground, right? We sit on the ground, that's avelus, right?
Greeting.
What?
Greeting is...
greeting, Sheila Sholim. All these things are part of the... right, that is part of the avelus part. Now, as far as eating and drinking, I just want to be makdim here that obviously anyone in a situation who can't eat or drink, chayla, A chayla is potter from Tisha B'Av is a tinus to Rabbanan. It's not a deraisa like in Kippur. And a chayla is potter from fasting on Tisha B'Av. Someone who is sick. Now, obviously, everyone should ask a shayla. It goes into that category. What's called a chayla and what's called a guy just a little under the weather, and what's, a person has to ask a shayla. But there is a halacha that a chayla is potter from fasting. And one shouldn't be machmer. It goes both ways. You shouldn't be makel without asking a shayla. You shouldn't be machmer without asking a shayla. Health is very important. And some people go the wrong direction because emotionally they feel they want to be part of the system, but lav dafka, that's the right thing to do. Now we are more machmer obviously on Tisha B'Av than on the other tanesim. For example, muberes and menekes, we're more machmer sometimes. That until they feel a little uncomfortable, so until they feel a little worse than normal, maybe we'll make them eat, we'll make them fast. Maybe not. A shayla should be asked in each case, but there is a halacha that a chayla is potter from fasting. Uberes Menikas the Mechaber brings, they do fast, but many times we'll make on them, especially in Menekas, because in Uberes, if it's any chashash whatsoever that there should be anything wrong, we're makel, and on Menekas, if they don't have enough milk for the child, we're very makel. So each case has to be asked.
Is it an all or nothing proposition for people like that?
That's an excellent question. Is it all or nothing? In other words, what do they do? Let's say someone who's not going to fast. What do they do? Is it chuta, they can eat? It's not. It's a very interesting shayla, and it's a very unclear answer. But I'm going to try to answer it as best as I can. So, because it's a very relevant question. In other words, someone who's a chayla that's going to eat. So first, one thing is clear. It's not a party time. So if they're going to eat, they eat what they need to eat, and they can eat right away in the morning usually, and they can eat in the afternoon again, and they can eat supper time again, and they can drink whenever they need to drink, and any healthy foods. But again, it's not something which they should just snack and do something just lahanoah. That's not proper behavior. But something which is eating, that they should definitely do for health. That's important. This is a halacha. That's by but any chayla, what?
Like Yom Kippur is like Pachas Mishir, no?
Yeah. So technically, according to most poskim, Pachas Mishir does not apply on Tisha B'Av. So Yom Kippur the pshat is like this. Yom Kippur there's a issa deraisa to eat. This is deraisa to eat, and that issa there's a chatzi shir is asur. I mean, Torah maybe even eating half a shir is also asur. So eating Pachas Mishir is not a heter on Yom Kippur. It's only better. There's no chi of kares. So therefore, someone who has to eat for whatever reason, so we're not the first Pachas Mishir that they shouldn't be b'chlal the issa kares. It's mutter for them, but we always minimize the heter as much as possible. On Tisha B'Av it's a drabanan. So once there's no chi for them to fast, there's no chi l'sana, so then they can eat. There's no Pachas Mishir. But nonetheless, there were those that seemed to say that there is a din of Pachas Mishir. There's actually a very fascinating tshuva from the Chassam Sofer. He says like this: B'yom Tisha B'Av Tav Kuf Ayin Aleph. So go figure, that's about 200 years ago. So Hachlesi, he was sick. He had a drink. Now he had a shayla. So he came thought in his mind. He had a minion in his house. I guess it must have been elderly at the time. He had a minion in his house. They call me up for Aliyah. Should he go up or should he not go up? In other words, there's a shayla. The Mechaber says that someone that's not fasting shouldn't get aliyah for a vayachal. Even a kohen that's not fasting, and there's no other kohen in Beis Midrash, he should walk out. It's all halacha in the Mechaber about someone not fasting, whether she gets aliyah for vayachal. So here, Chassam Sofer had a drink. It seems like he had a drink. So the question was, could he get an aliyah for vayachal? So he wrote a whole tshuva on this. It's a very interesting tshuva. And he says, he brings down the Mechaber, and he says, he says that he doesn't understand. He says it's still a tinus for him. Just because he had to eat a little bit, but it's still a tainus. So it's still a chiv tainus on him. This is how he seems to learn. Really, he has a chiv tainus. He had to eat a little bit. So now after he eats, it's still a tainus. It's like he broke the tainus, it's tainus. So Avada should be able to say Vayichal. Now, this is how he seems to come out, that he holds that it really is a tainus, and all those that have to eat, they eat whatever they have to eat, and past that, they don't have to eat, they're not allowed to eat. It's still a tainus.
So what's the
Which may be
definition
true.
of breaking the tainus for them?
So it says like by a tainus of bahab, which the machab is really going on. So that's not a tainus. That's a tainus which you mikabel on yourself. So if you blew it, you blew it. You didn't do the tainus. But this is a tainus sibur that the Rabbanu will mechayev you, Rabbanu, but it's mechayev the tainus sibur. So you still have the tainus. So just because you're eating doesn't mean it's not the tainus. So you can still be part of vayechal. Matter of fact, he says if you have 10 people together that all have to eat, they could make a minyan and make vayechal. Not like the halacha seems to say in Shulchan Aruch. Now I saw the poskim are very. They don't go with this. Some say Mishabur himself, and it's in Tafkuf Samach. Hey, Alan.
But what
Vav.
does he say the definition of a
Vav.
tainus is?
What do you mean?
My
It's a
understanding
tainus
the
sibur,
definition of a tainus
Yeah.
is that you fast.
He's fasting from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock he has to eat, but it's still a chiv tainus on him. So 3 o'clock when he's finished eating, he doesn't have to eat anymore. Like in Kippur, someone has to eat a little bit. He can't eat anymore afterwards. So it's to eat. So it's a tainus today. So at 2 o'clock he's finished eating, doesn't have to eat anymore. It's still a tainus.
No, in Yom Kippur we say that he did break the tainus, but he did it in a minimal
No,
way.
we're not saying that. We're saying whatever you had to eat, you're allowed to eat. Whatever you don't have to eat, you're still asked to eat.
So the guy
That's
who
how it's
says,
go.
I quit smoking anytime. I quit 3 times today already.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly my point. Is that
It's not an all or nothing
So
deal.
it's not all or nothing.
Yeah. So, but the Maisa, the Poskim don't seem to like that. The Poskim seem to say that no, if a guy eats, he's not b'chlal the tainus fully, and he can't be part of it. And so there's a tshuva from Rabbi Moshe Sternbach who deals with this Chassam Sofer, and he wants to say it depends on what type of chayli it is, what type of sick person it is. If it's someone who's sick and has a heter to eat, he's allowed to eat. There's no qualms. He can eat when he needs to eat and finish. There's no pachsvik share. There's no, there's no limitations. He eats. He shouldn't be mesanig. He shouldn't have eat just extra just for pleasure, but he eats. But it says the Chassam Sofer was sick with something which required him. So it's not in tshuva only he needed to drink. He didn't have to eat. That's another thing. But he says even if you have to eat, but it's only something which is a little bit preventive. In other words, he had to eat in order that he shouldn't get sick. He had a sickness which requires you to. He wasn't actually sick now, but if he wouldn't eat, he would be sick. So this is a little different. The poskim say that there's preventive eating. Someone who's weak. What?
Pills, somebody has to take pills.
Pills for sure. That person could take. Yeah, because that's not really eating.
And if you have to eat with those pills?
If you have to eat with those pills, then it depends what the purpose of taking the pills are. Yeah, but Eidachanami, preventive eating for preventive, that there's a din that a person should eat pachas and kasher. Someone say Yashiva and like that also, that if someone needs to eat just to prevent getting sick, then there's an Indian taka to eat on Tisha B'Av less than a share and to keep within the tainus. Or even a Chassam Sofer, even if you had to eat more, but not a din chayla. A chayla is potter from Tisha B'Av. A chayla is potter from being Masana. But someone's not mamish a chayla, it's just eating to keep up his health that he shouldn't be a chayla, so then they eat whatever they have to eat, and they're still included in the tainus. And that's what the Chassam Sofer was referring to when he said they could still say Vayichal, because they're not, to be potter from the tainus, they have to be a chayla. And if someone's not a chayla, it's not potter. A little bit of a chiddush, but that's how he learns in Moshe Sternbach. And it seems like the poskim grapple with this, but at least of the din of pachas and kasher, there is such a din. But otherwise, someone who is already sick, who should eat what he has to eat, and that's the way it is. Depending on, everybody should ask a shayla, depending what the situation is, if they should wait till chatzos, or they should eat right away in the morning, or what the story is. Yeah, that's as far as fasting goes. But otherwise, it's a Tisha B'Av D'Rabbanan. It's not it's a deraisa. So.
And do you say aneinu if you ate? That's another thing.
Yeah, so that's also the shaila. You say aneinu That's also the Shaila. The one that eats doesn't say Anenu. Doesn't say Anenu. Say Nachem, but
But
it
in
doesn't
this
say
case, he
Anenu.
would.
According to Chassam Sofer, maybe you'd be able to, yeah. The minhag is that someone who eats doesn't say Anenu. That's why if a person can wait till after Mincha, depending on the person, you can't be machmer in these things.
So if you know you're going to be breaking the fast, you can't fast it the whole time, but you're fasting at the time of Shabbos and Mincha, you would say
you could say Anenu, yeah.
even though you know you're going to fast.
Okay, so that goes as far as eating. Now, eating includes you're not allowed to drink either. Drinking is part of the tinus. If someone really feels it's bothersome very much the smell in his mouth, so there is a heter by Tanesim to rinse one's mouth, put just the front of the mouth and hold his mouth down and spit it out, so it shouldn't come to swallow. It takes a bit of a mouthwash. It's probably better, so which is not. But in any case,
not drinking that for pleasure.
Yeah, but to hold it down and rinse, that would be allowed.
What about brushing teeth?
Brushing teeth with a dry toothbrush. You just brush it with.
Isn't there an idea of it being chitza?
You're allowed to wash. You're allowed to wash if there's dirt on you. You want to wash off the dirt. So if there's something that's bothersome, that's bothering you, then you could rinse it out. But again, you put your mouth down, then it shouldn't get to the back of the mouth. It shouldn't. Only if it's bothering you. You get bothered out if you go with that.
Swallow it.
What if it's bothering somebody else?
Right.
Yeah, because you're allowed to wash. If I have dirt on my hand, I'm allowed to wash it. Even though sweat, we say, also, sweat's the type of thing which is not necessarily considered dirt. That's part of Tish. But if it's really bothersome, so you can wash it off. It's really bothersome, because that has a din of dirt.
You say dry toothbrushes. I mean, with toothpaste but not water, or nothing?
Nothing. I mean, toothpaste, you're going to have to get rid of the toothpaste. Stay in the mouth.
We talk about dirt, because I assume when you go to the bathroom, that's considered, the bacteria is considered dirt.
Yeah, anything which is done for reasons other than pleasure is technically mutter. So if a person's generally very makrid, going to the washroom, is allowed to wash his hands. Any part that he feels may be infected or touched anything, he could wash, even past his elbow. Washing for the mitzvah, after one goes out of the washroom, is supposed to wash that. You wash until the knuckles. But as far as dirt, or as far as if you feel hygiene, if he feels that it's dirty past there, he could wash that and use whatever they have there, alcohol stuff that he could do. You're not doing it for sicha, and you're not doing it for washing. You're doing it just to get off dirt or bacteria. That's mutter. It's not us. What's us is just washing is us, and for the mitzvah we allow until the knuckles. If someone has to eat and is washing for a suda, washing to eat bread, someone's a chayil has to eat, so they can wash all the way to the perik, because that's a chiv to wash mikra adin. Washing coming out of the washroom, or even only till sidayums for real chval, no one make until the knuckles. Someone has to wash for suda, they can already wash. If they usually they wash further, so they can wash more. Yes, that's the general din about washing. If there's a person has dirt on him, he can wash it off. Sicha also putting oils or other things on him, which is asur. But if you're doing for medicine reasons, that's mutter. It's only if you're doing for pleasure or for washing is asur. Deodorant, a person is doing it because to take away the smell, he can put on deodorant. That's normal to take away the smell. That's not considered a sicha, which is asur. But to put on perfumes is definitely asur. What?
Sunscreen?
Sunscreen is mutter. You're putting on sunscreen to maximize. You're not doing it for pleasure, for sicha purposes. So that would be mutter.
But it's not a day that you spend much time outside.
What?
But it's not a day that you spend much time outside.
It says you're supposed to go to the Beis HaKvaros. I don't know. But sometimes you're outside, you're working, and some people are outside, so they could put on, if they need it. Camps, people are outside.
But you don't go for strolls on Tish.
No, a person's supposed to be mamayit. A person's supposed to, it's hard, in Canada it's hard. It's a very long day. And it used to bother me, I'll tell you, my personal. It used to bother me that all these mass Tisha B'Av speeches, videos, or whatever they are, it's shaloi me'inyan hayom. It's a shaila if you're allowed to get together with all Talmidim and learn with them. Because we're supposed to be in private, learn himself. To get together, say 100 people together, that's already not me'inyan Tisha B'Av. But l'maisa, the poskim, all the big poskim today say it's 100% mutter, and the reason is because what else are you doing? what's the downside? What's the other option? Sit around your home doing nothing? Better come to a Musar Shmuz. Musar, one of the things you're allowed to learn is Musar, and it's a good thing to do. You get some Musar, especially on Tisha B'Av. So it's definitely more recommended. It has to be a balance, you know. What's the balance? Sit at home and read a newspaper, or go to the thing. So definitely, it has a lot of value, but the Iker, one's supposed to be sitting alone and doing his own thing, so learning a little bit. But it's hard, it's a long day, it's a very long day.
In working.
The meaning of working is a hard question to answer. The reason why I say it's a hard question to answer, because it says like this. It says that Mokum Shenogu Lasis Malacha V'Tisha B'Av Oisin, and Mokum Shenogu Shaloi Lasis Ein Oisin. The poskim say that, and Lamar says already, that our minig is not to work until Chatzos. And so, but what's called malacha? Malacha is something which is manual labor, which takes your mind off the avelos. But what about pragmatia? So business, you know.
Even more so.
Business, yeah. So the Maisa, the minig is to try to stay away until Chatzos, but many times it's considered a davar avid. A guy just can't take off for work. A guy that could take off for work should take off for work, because a person is supposed to have his mind on the veil. It's not supposed to be involved in other things, at least until Chatzos. A person can't. It's a davar avid. If it had to davar avid, it's a loss. So you know, even if it's not so much the monetary loss of that day, but you know, if the boss won't be too happy with you, there's a problem with law. So if a person has to go, he should bring along with him Eicha tapes, Tisha B'Av tapes. He should bring along with him things to focus, and if the person shouldn't have his mind off the avails for a prolonged period. So you have alarm go off every half hour or so, and listen to something, listen to a short thing, and then you go back. This way he keeps himself involved in the that's the ikka. The reason why it's asa malacha, it's not an asa malacha like on Shabbos. The reason why it's asa malacha is that a person's mind should be occupied with the tsar of the avelus and not with the today you could just turn on the news and listen to all the shtusim that the outside world has to say about us, and you keep your mind on Tisha B'Av. So I don't know if I'm recommending it. Depression is also not a good thing to do, even on Tish B'Av. But a person has to have their mind on it.
But this is all after Chatzos you talk before
Chatzos, and even after Chatzos, whatever a person can do, even after Chatzos. The minhag is to stay away from Malchim before Chatzos, and if after Chatzos, to try, a person should try to keep the mind on the Tisha B'Av as much as they can. It's an avodah. Tisha B'Av is an avodah. Like every day of the year, it's an avodah. And the avodah sayyim is avelus. So whatever a person can put in, that takes away from the Sabal Yushalayim Zoicha B'Rei B'Simchasai. So that's the. I just want to share with you this. I'll end with this. This beautiful Chasam Sofer from Pshat. Pshat in Rebbe. It's a fascinating thing. Rebbe's shita was that if Tisha B'Av came out on Shabbos, Rebbe, you know, Rebbe wrote the Mishnah. Rebbe's shita was that if Tisha B'Av came out on Shabbos, what do? We push it off to Sunday. We push it off to Sunday. So Shabbos we do regular Shabbos, and then Sunday is Tisha B'Av. Rebbe held there's no such thing. Sunday is not Tisha B'Av. Sunday is not Tisha B'Av. Rebbe, the Gemara Megillah says Rebbe wanted to mevatel Tisha B'Av to begin with. Rebbe wasn't. That was the shita. But the Gemara says like this: Rebbe laid Megillus Eicha on Shabbos that Tisha B'Av came out. So it's a Midrash of Eicha. Tisha B'Av Shabbos Kori Rebbe Megillus Eicha. Yoshu Lefanav, his Talmidim, Rabbi Mordechai. Rabbi Mordechai wrote the Bryson. They were sitting from him. The Nokaf Rebbe at Spy, he stubbed his finger. So he's reading Eicha, so he said on himself, Rabbi Mordechai l'Rosha. Many pains are there to a Rosh. In other words, he's calling himself a Rosh, and he got pains because he must have done sins. So the Talmidim answered back to him, Haloi Karisi, you just read, Mashiach Hashem nilkad b'shchisaisa. So in other words, Mashiach Hashem, the anointed one of Hashem, the Megillah Seichel read by Yosha, that he was caught in the Averis of the dark. So no, saying it's not your fault, Rabbi. You're caught in our Averis. Mashiach Hashem nilkad b'shchisaisa. So what's the pshat? So some Sefer explains the pshat like this. On Tish B'Av we said it's us to learn with other people. You can't teach other people. Now we just said that today it's hutter, that it's better to go learn b'chabura than to be at home. But the Ikva did is it's us to learn teach other people. So what's Rebbe held that there's no Tish B'Av on Sunday. The Tish B'Av is on Shabbos, just Dvarim shebetzina noyik. Dvarim but for Hesse you don't do on Shabbos. So he held you can't learn on Tish B'Av, and he held you can't teach others. So he was reading Eicha. His Talmidim held that no, it's Tish B'Av tomorrow. Reb Chacham held that way. So they were allowed to learn from Rebbe on Tish B'Av, so they sat in front of him to learn from him the Eicha. That's what happened. So Rebbe said...
He wasn't leaning in shul, he was leaning for
himself.
himself.
He was doing himself Eicha. So he said, Rebbe held that, for me it's Tish B'Av today, so I'm reading Eicha today. So now I got stubbed my finger as an einish for me because I should have been involved with my das to the rest of the Chachamim and held Tish B'Av on Sunday and not kept with my shita, you know. And they said no. Maybe you're being punished for our averos because we're coming to sit and you sit by you and learn from you because we're not listening to you. We're holding that it's not Tish B'Av, and that's. And they were told the chait by themselves that they sat to Rebbe and learned from him, even though for Rebbe he held it was Tish B'Av. Akapadim, it's a beautiful shot in the Midrash, but this year it doesn't come out on Shabbos, and learning is a serious thing. What a person should learn, it's more important. Whatever he learns is better than the other things that he does. But there's plenty to learn. There's Chavelus, there's Eicha Rabbah, and there's Musa Svarim. There's a lot what a person could do, and it may be difficult. It may be difficult to spend the whole day learning, especially after a person's in a tightness. But whatever a person could do, every little bit a person does is a schus. It's a schus, and with that, he could be zeicha, the roy b'simchasa. We shouldn't have Tish B'Av not this year, and definitely not next year. And it should be the end of our tzaras.
Amen.